Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of World of Warships. And today, I'm going to be taking a look at top 5 most powerful cruisers that you can buy from the Santa containers, from the Santa Mega containers as well as from the Santa normal containers. So they have some chance of getting these ships, especially in the rare category. And some of the cruisers are in the category which are extremely powerful. I would say they are almost broken to the very strong levels. And why they are really strong, I will be explaining that in the video. In my top 5 list, I usually make these lists out there so that players will get aware of the characteristics of these ships and why they have also gotten removed, at least in the video. So definitely watch the full list. And if you do like the content, please like, share and subscribe. And if you are new to the channel, definitely comment me down below. What do you think about this list? So let's talk about the number 5 pick. And obviously, this is my personal opinion that I believe that these are really good ships at their tiers and they're definitely gotten removed for a reason. So at number 6, we have the German, I would say heavy cruiser, and probably one of the most unique tier 6 German heavy cruisers in this entire game, Graf Spee. I would say at number 5, it sits really comfortably. I mean, it has one of the most unique things in this entire game, and that is its HP. Graf Spee has ridiculous amount of HP at 41,000, and I haven't even put the, you call this upgrade, oh sorry, the Captain Skill Survivability Expert. I mean, if you put this perk in for the Graf Spee, you can get it up to like for like 44,000 HP, which is really good at tier 6. I would say like the most impressive out of all cruisers in terms of its HP. Torpedo protection is also pretty respectable considering it's a cruiser at tier 6. Usually you don't get this much level of torpedo protection, as well as the guns of higher caliber and the reload time, which might looks like really high, but then these are battleship caliber level guns at 283mm, which actually able to overmatch a lot of cruisers at tier 5 because of the very poor armor plating, and usually cruisers don't even have access to the heal, which Graf Spee does have, and it has 4 heals. So you have insane HP at tier 6. You have heals, which usually don't get, for a tier 6 cruiser, as well as you have a very typical German hydro of 5.5 kilometer detection of ships, which is really nice because at lower tiers, the better hydro means like at least that 5.5 kilometer hydro can caught DDs off guard very completely, and especially a lot of destroyers, they really don't know that they have a, like Graf Spee, something like that, have a hydro that can caught them completely off guard in their smokes, and that's what Graf Spee brings into the table. Also, you have the fighter, which are pretty decent against aircraft carriers, even though I won't say it's really good in terms of anti-defense, but that's not the speciality of that ship. That speciality is the guns and the HP. The amount of tankiness that you also get from this armor, like you have 25mm armor, like the side plating and the deck, which means that at least I would say 380mm caliber or above can overmatch, but not less than that. So at tier 6 and 5, there are a lot of battleships that having like 357mm caliber guns or 305mm caliber guns. They won't be able to overmatch you, which is really nice. So your survivability is kind of off the charts, and that's one of the things that makes Graf Spee really good. The gun's accuracy is also, I would say, one of the speciality because it has access to battle cruiser dispersion, so it does not have battleship dispersion. Considering it has 6 battleship guns at 20 seconds of reload time, the range is pretty decent at 16 kilometer. The AP alpha is almost 9,000 if you have Gunther Luthians. Sorry if I mispronounced the name, I'm sorry for that, but at least this German unique captain sits comfortably well with Graf Spee, and when it got released, the Graf Spee does not have this sort of, value from the unique captains, because at the time we don't have access to unique captains, or I would say legendary captains like this guy. So that makes Graf Spee insanely powerful against broadside cruisers. You can actually do citadels with 8.8k alpha on cruisers, and you can also penetrate pretty decent battleship armor, and also you have torpedoes, which are very interesting because you have 8 kilometer torpedoes. Now usually German cruisers, heavy cruisers like Hindenburg or maybe Rune, if you talk about that, they have 6 kilometer torpedoes, but it has 8 kilometer torpedoes, and the firing angles are also amazing. If you are in kiting position, these torpedo firing angles are pretty impressive. So 8 kilometer torpedoes, concealment is actually still rivaling to that of cruisers at this tier. Makes Graf Spee one of the very interesting cruisers at this tier, even though the firepower might get a bit wonkier, considering it still have 1.9 sigma and having a battle cruiser dispersion, and only 6 guns mean that, yeah, sometimes your shells will gonna be landing not at the best area where you want to have. But again, the ship itself is really interesting, and I would say strong, considering it's a cruiser of its own tier. So yeah, Graf Spee sits really well at number 5 for me, and in my personal opinion, this ship is really worth it if you got that ship in this Santa event. Alright, so at number 4, we have a Russian light cruiser, quite opposite to that of Graf Spee at tier 10. The one and only Smolensk. So that ship is also deserved to be in this list. I mean, you cannot really forget how powerful this ship when it got released was, and it is still in 2024. It is still one of the most ridiculous light cruiser, Russian light cruiser in this entire game. And the reasons are pretty simple. What really makes Smolensk still really strong is these guns. You have 16 guns having insane HE/DPM with 4.5 seconds of reload time, and you have almost 2000 HE alpha if you have this captain skill. And especially this Alexander Ovechkin really kicks its HP up to almost 40,000, and especially with the Charlie Kilo flag introduced. If you apply this on Smolensk, you're having HP of almost 40,000. That is nuts. A Smolensk having 32,000 HP can get up to 40,000 means, well, it's crazy powerful. You have the smokes that you can easily deploy alongside with the hydro, and with these 16 guns that having decent range if you upgrade with the gun fire control mod 2, like increasing the firing range. Eventually you have this insane DPM monster machine that can set insane amount of fires with 10% fire chance, even though the HE penetration capacity is only 22mm. But then Smolensk has 16 guns with really rail guns. I won't say rail guns, but it is having a very good shell arc. So the velocity, the Soviet shell arcs make Smolensk guns a lot much more easier to shoot even at long ranges, and you can easily farm battleships with setting tons of fires with 10% fire chance. So you are literally a flamethrower that is gonna be so much annoying for battleships to deal with, especially that you have the smoke as well as the hydro for dodging torpedoes, and I have already talked about the HP. Now the A defense is also not the best, but it's not the worst. But since you're going to be farming a lot of ships in smoke or behind the covers, it's going to be a lot much more easier with the cover, obviously. And then you have torpedoes as well, which are 8 kilometer to self-defend if someone is pushing you. Your concealment is also 10 kilometer, as well as the detectability after firing main guns in smoke is also under 6 kilometer, which is very impressive. So Smolensk is a very good package. Insane HE spammer, with also really strong AP, because again, these guns are, that of Grozovoi guns, but they do hurt if anyone show broadside. AP is also gonna do tons of damage. I have literally done like 10,000 damage, or maybe like 7-8k volleys every like 3 to 4.5 seconds of reload time, depending upon the adrenaline rush skill if you have it on Smolensk, which is obviously you needed that, because even at lower HP you will be still farming them in smoke, which will make Smolensk still one of the most strongest cruisers in even 2024, even though it has also gotten some nerf. I used to remember that you can also have a captain skill which increases the range of Smolensk up to 19 kilometer, but that can't happen now. But still, extremely powerful. If you get this ship in the Santa rare containers list, well, you are pretty lucky, and will have fun farming those poor battleships or even those poor destroyers that somehow caught off guard at around 12-13 kilometers. You will just absolutely gonna blaze them to pieces. So yeah, insanely good HE spammer, Smolensk. Okay, so at number 3 we have a battleship that is, wait, a battleship? No, it's not a battleship. Wait, it looks like to have a battleship HP. Oh, it's 80,000 HP almost. What the hell you are talking about? It should be a battleship. No guys, it's a cruiser but it is the Soviet Kronshtdadt. Now, this is another tier 9 heavy cruiser that a lot of people underrated. Probably one of the most underrated cruisers in this entire game, yet I totally believe that it is overpowered. It is so strong because of many reasons, okay? Now, a lot of people do complain about the guns. I will get back to it later, but let's talk about the survivability first. With the Alexander Ovechkin and obviously another Charlie Kilo thingy flag, if you apply on Kronshtdadt, you can get this up to from 71,000 to 79,000 HP, which is actually higher than Iowa class battleships. 78,000 HP of Iowa, well, Kronshtdadt just shrugging it off with like 79,000 HP with 34% torpedo belt, which you will not going to find that on many heavy cruisers, except from those O-class battle cruisers that are like Aegir and Siegfried. But apart from the other heavy cruisers, I don't think so the other ships gonna have that good torpedo protection as the Aegir or Kronshtdadt, because both of them are really good having torpedo protection. Now, let's talk about the guns. I talked about the armor, but let me explain a bit more before getting back to the guns, because this is another thing that is kind of a weakness. 27mm armor on the deck as well as on the side armor means that you're gonna get overmatched by 380mm guns or above. But remember, you have a lot of HP. I would say insane HP at tier 9, and also some couple of good value that Kronshtdadt does get is gonna be this armor belt. You have 230mm armor belt, which is really nice, I would say. Now, this armor is pretty long and pretty wide, which also makes Kronshtdadt a lot much more resilient to get overmatched, especially if you are kiting away. Because when you are kiting away, well, this armor is definitely quite above the waterline and quite thick enough that a lot of battleships AP will bounce, and hence the Kronshtdadt gets a lot much more tankier than you think. I mean, you can say that the bow and the stern are 25mm, which is going to be the biggest weakness of Kronshtdadt, as well as some of the extremities in terms of its poor armor scheme, which is like 15mm deck armor. Well, that is pretty bad. I mean, a lot of the shells, if someone hit onto the front of the turret, you are going to get citadeled, which is pretty easy if you are in Kronshtdadt, so definitely one thing that you should remember. But still, Kronshtdadt is crazy good in terms of its HP and its armor pool. Alright, so let's talk about the guns as well, because, well, this is something where people actually dislike the Kronshtdadt. Now, it has 9 guns, 305mm. It has Soviet shell arcs. The shell velocity of these guns are like crazy. I would say these are very comparable to Stalingrad guns. Not, at least in some way, because Stalingrad guns also have really good shell velocity, and the Kronshtdadt also have these similar parameters, but at least Kronshtdadt, well, it's definitely lacking Stalingrad AP pen angles as well as improved penetration. But even then, Kronshtdadt guns penetration is pretty absurd for 305mm guns, and it has at least one thing, which is the Soviet shell velocity. At least I actually just forget the thing that I want to talk about. But let's talk about something which I want to talk is going to be the spotting aircraft. Now, Kronshtdadt XS spotting aircraft that does help wonders. The Kronshtdadt, with this spotting aircraft, if you're able to have the upgrade slot, which increases the spotting aircraft consumable action time by 30%, you can get it up to 22 kilometers range, which you won't find on these, heavy cruisers with this insane level of pen. And also you have access to radar. 12-kilometer radar like Stalingrad, but you have way better action time at 33 seconds if you fully build for it, which makes it at least better than that. Stalingrad does have AP pen angles and shell velocity is similar, but Kronshtdadt still has better penetration than Petropavlovsk, and that's what I was looking to talk, but I don't know why I just messed up. My sore throat actually kind of makes me feeling a bit ill, and that's why I just messed up during the talk. But anyways, I simply would say that the Kronshtdadt is definitely very underrated, even though it has battleship dispersion. Yes, it has this battleship dispersion, which is very much comparable to the Montana, and I would say the Iowa, North Carolina class battleships. It has 2.05 Sigma, and that's one of the things that still makes the guns quite, I would say, relatively consistent compared to battleship, but it is still worse than Alaska. at least that having battle cruiser dispersion, it has still really good reload time of around 18.5 seconds base, which you can get down to 16.3, and that's one of the things that Alaska don't have access. Even Stalingrad don't have access. At least at tier 10, Yoshino has the base reload time of a heavy cruiser, which is 18.3, but you are seeing the Kronshtdadt having that reload time at tier 9, which is really good. And combined with the fact that it also have really good concealment, if I go and just use the Kuznetsov, you can get it up to 12.7 kilometer detection, which, let me do this quickly. Let me put the Nikolai Kuznetsov. So there it is. You can get having the detection of 12.7 kilometer, which is way better than Stalingrad, and combined with the fact that with this radar, you can almost always spot destroyers at will, because they will most likely be under your radar, which makes it really powerful if you want to disengage against any other ship out there. Even the Neptune, Minotaur, they will going to get overmatched by these guns. The shell velocity is, as I said, extremely good. You cannot go wrong with Kronshtdadt. I would say with this HP pool that it has, Kronshtdadt gets, in my opinion, very, very strong. I would say almost borderline overpowered at tier 9, and hence it is, for my list, is going to be at number 3. Now at number 2, we have the American battle cruiser, I would say large cruiser, that is Alaska. Now Alaska, I would say, definitely felt a bit better, at least in terms of its gun performance. Now the consistency of the guns is way better because it has access to battle cruiser dispersion compared to Kronstadt's battleship dispersion. That is a big difference. The battle cruiser dispersion, which also having the improved range at 19 kilometer, you have slightly better dispersion with also decent HE as well as AP penetration capabilities. Now it's not kind of like Kronshtdadt, where Kronshtdadt has insane bunkers penetration, but Alaska still having very respectable penetration, and you do have AP angles, which Kronshtdadt does currently lack. You have Des Moines AP angles with this really good penetration, means that you can be an absolute crazy broadside dev striker, at least against tier 7 and tier 8 cruisers. It is pretty good, at least in that regard. Now your HP does not really compare to that of Kronshtdadt. Kronshtdadt has 71,000 HP, Alaska has 60,000. So that is a lot of difference, I would say. 10,000 difference for me is big, but then just like Kronshtdadt, you do have heals and you also have radar. Now also, compared to Kronshtdadt, you have only 10 km radar and having a worse concealment at 12.2. So kind of definitely not the Kronshtdadt likeness in terms of the the potential to radar destroyers once they will get spotted, but still it's pretty useful in just denying out the caps of those poor destroyers that somehow managed to get into the Alaska radar. You do have slightly, I would say, quite better radar compared to Kronshtdadt at 46.2 seconds. So definitely pretty good, at least in that regard. You do also have hydro as well as defensive air, but not having access to spotter, which is very unique in Kronshtdadt. And with that shell velocity, I think the spotter on Kronshtdadt feels amazing. Now, I haven't talked about depth charge airstrike, but I think it's pretty typical of cruisers, so nothing to really worry about those airstrikes. They are pretty typical at 7 kilometer. But the anti defense of Kronshtdadt was pretty bad, but the Alaska having better anti defense. And if you have a defensive fire, it gets actually pretty decent, I would say, slightly above average, I would say, against tier 8 aircraft carriers, and still going to be average against tier 10 aircraft carriers. So don't expect many planes to get shot on, but still, it does help a lot if you put defensive air fire, although I just never recommend it. Do not use defensive air fire, just use hydro, because you can also take down those submarines if they are within the vicinity of that, detection of 5 kilometers. So that is very important. So Alaska, with these guns, still pack a punch. The penetration might not be that great, but still you will get a lot of hand damage if you hit onto the upper belt of the armor of battleships, and you are a really good cruiser killer, and you can also make destroyers life hell. But the firing angles of Alaska compared to Kronshtdadt are slightly weaker, but still overall a very, very good package at tier 9. So definitely very worthy ship to play at number 2 for me. So finally at number 1, we have the OG Belfast, the pay fast, the pay to win cruiser, the light cruiser at tier 7 that we always know is broken. And if you don't know, well, let me explain why it is really the most broken ship at tier 7. Now, I would say it's literally a tier 8, to be honest. It having the guns that having really good reload time. You have AG shells, unlike a lot of the light cruisers, the British light cruisers that have only access to AP. At least Belfast has access to AG, and having 10% fire chance means that you are also going to be kind of like the similar style of having the flamethrower levels of AG spam and getting fires just like Smolensk. But again, to top it up, so, the Belfast has a lot more powerful features that you won't get on Smolensk, and that is its radar. Now, radar is kind of absurd because it can get up to 33 seconds at tier 7. I mean, I can't imagine that this radar can absolutely caught so many destroyers off guard once they are playing at tier 7, especially the newer players, and Belfast does it pretty well alongside with you having a smoke like Smolensk. And you have more smokes because why not? And that's what makes the Belfast pretty ridiculous. And also, the fact is that it has the access of concealment system mod 1, which is kind of crazy. You having this upgrade where you can able to just use the concealment system mod 1 and can reduce the ship detection range to minus 10%, which it gets it up to 8.9 kilometers, which is pretty ridiculous because at tier 7 you don't have access to this sort of upgrade slot, but you are having it in Belfast, which is crazy. Also, you have British acceleration perk, which means that you don't need to slot the acceleration mod, you simply have to use the rudder shift time, reducing this rudder shift, I would say, pretty nicely at 7.7 seconds. I would say it's pretty decent, and with the help of the smoke and the hydro combo, I mean, you're not going to be taking torpedo damage. Your acceleration is pretty good to dodge those torpedoes, and you have this insane HE spamming quality that you're getting at tier 7 makes Belfast pretty good with 15.4 kilometer firing range, and also surprisingly having the plane-based airstrikes. Well, that is something that really boggles my mind. If a Minotaur having the ship-based ASW, why Belfast get depth charge airstrikes, which I would say plane-based ASW? Like, it is ridiculous. Why making Belfast even more absurd? I mean, they could have easily done something like, for example, nerfing the depth charges, just like they have done on the Massachusetts and Musashi. But fortunately, with the dev block changes, the balance changes, they have somehow managed to make it 10 kilometer ASW range, but nerfing the alpha damage overall. But Belfast still retains everything original for all the cruisers typically having, and you can also have this on Belfast, makes it extremely powerful even against submarines, especially you have hydro and radar combos. So come on guys, it makes it really good with the 8.9 kilometer concealment, 8.5 kilometer radar. So this ship is a beast. I mean, if you play it, if you have able to get this ship, consider yourself the most lucky guy, because when you are playing it in rank battle, it's gonna be really powerful. Now, the firing angles of the Belfast might not really impress you. It has really terrible firing angles. The armor might not really impress you either. It's going to get Citadel pretty easily, especially this area. If someone managed to hit here, this deck armor will simply going to get overmatched by even some cruisers out there, and you're going to get smashed. So definitely do not show broadside. That's where Belfast will suffer, although you also have pretty weak armor, which is 13 millimeter bow and 13 millimeter stern. So yeah, that's where it's still going to have some issues and a lot of that superstructure. So definitely watch out for that. It's pretty weird that it also have some armor plating there, which is funny enough, but still I think Belfast is one of the most powerful ships for exactly these reasons, and sits very comfortably at number 1. Now there is one ship that I would like to mention, and that is the Defense, another British heavy cruiser at tier 10. I mean, this cruiser actually got available, I would say, in the Will for Victory. I don't remember the event name. It's basically happened last year when they also sold Kitakami for absurd amount of resources. Also, the Defense was also like there. And surprisingly, Defense actually is way more powerful than Kitakami itself. I mean, Kitakami is a very torpedo-focused boat, but Defense, having the very good qualities of Defense with also really good guns and also having some couple of gimmicks that makes it, I would say, one of the ships that I should definitely mention. Now, it has very good HP at 60,000, so it's definitely shows that it is a heavy cruiser. Also, its armor, the deck armor is surprisingly tanky at 40 millimeter, and side armor might be actually vulnerable against, the Vermont shells, the Shikishima, Satsuma, Incomparable, all those ships that have 430 or above will going to overmatch it, and also the bow is very vulnerable. So that's where defense might suffer. The Citadel is pretty big. It's like a Nelson, but sits at tier 10. I mean, sort of having some sort of immunity when you are very close ranges because of this, area where it has some slopes. But at close ranges, it might be having a bit, chances of getting those battleship bounce. But at long ranges, it's going to take a huge damage, and you're mostly going to get depth strike if you show broadside. But then they decided to give this ship a short smoke generator. So let me show you what I meant by those consumable. That is in the ship tool ST. Now I cannot show you there because I don't have this ship in my port, but let me show you in the shiptool.st website. So as you can see in the shiptool.st, I have put the defense, and it has some interesting things going for it. Now it has a healing repair party. Now it's not a super heal, but it is also improved heal. Usually you can heal only 40% of the HP, but in the case of defense, you can heal back 17% HP almost. And you have short burst smokes generator, which is kind of crazy, considering it sort of works like a heavy cruiser, and also you have a hydro which has 5 kilometer range. So it's not like a short range hydroacoustic surge that you find on daring class destroyers, but you are getting these sort of things in defense. Also, one thing to note that these guns, 6 of them on defense, having AP which is comparable to the Des Moines AP in terms of AP angles. Now it has 60 to 68 degree ricochet angles that you also, just like I said, found on Des Moines, on Salem class heavy cruisers in American ships. And you're having better penetration, as you can see, 400 millimeter penetration at 12 kilometer, which means that you're going to get those cruisers easily going to Citadel. And with this alpha damage of 10.5k with 356 millimeter guns, it's definitely gonna hurt those cruisers. Also, the HE is also pretty impressive. Like you have 41% fire chance with 89 millimeter penetration at 6.1k alpha. So it means that this is also gonna do pretty well if any battleship is angled. Also, keep in mind that it has the cruiser dispersion. It does not have access to battle cruiser. It straight up gets the cruiser dispersion with 2.05 sigma. So the accuracy of the defense is also very, very nice. So these are all the things that make defense a really worthy ship. If you somehow managed to not get it last year, maybe try your luck in Santa containers and you might have a chance of getting defense, because it is very, very strong at tier 10. So this is, I would say, an honorable mention. With a very good concealment, you can get it down to like 10 kilometer-ish concealment. I haven't even talked about it. So it makes defense really powerful with the kit that it provides. So with this list, I will end the video. I hope you guys liked the video. I'm sure that you might be saying that you are having some issues while talking. I can understand that. I was having a bit of a sore throat. I also got a flu a couple of days ago, and hence the reason I didn't able to make the video. But I want to address this video with cruiser list, because a lot of players might be looking to get these ships from the raid category and want to know that why they are strong, and hence I have to upload the video. I hope you get the value, and if you find it useful, please let me know in the comment. If I have messed up anywhere, I apologize, and thank you guys for watching. I know that I didn't do the best that I should be in terms of talking, in terms of just talking about the ship characteristics in general, but you can understand what I am trying to say. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully I will catch you into the next video, and hopefully it's gonna be Shinano. It's gonna be a tier 10 Shinano that I will hopefully be making a video on. So thank you guys for watching again, and I will catch you into the next one. Peace out.